Hi, this is Jill Varvel with DixieCast, The Sound of the South. As of January of this year, 2022, my family and I moved across the country from Washington State to Arkansas. We brought with us two cars, a trailer, and two dogs. One of the dogs was Mickey, our beloved family pet of 14 years, and the other dog was Rufus, our German Shepherd puppy, who at the time was about a year old. The drive took over 5 days in the cold of winter, and unfortunately, we only arrived to Arkansas with Rufus. Mickey didn't make it. I'm going to dedicate this podcast to helpful tips that we learned along the way moving across the country with pets. So we were leaving. We were living in Eastern Washington at the time, and at the time of our move, we were heading to Fayetteville from Eastern Washington. Our movers had just driven away, and we were heading to our hotel to lodge that evening. It made a lot more sense because we left so late at night from our home in Eastern Washington. It made a lot more sense to stay at a hotel that evening right there in the city that we were living in so that we could get a good night's sleep. Uh, unbeknownst to us, that night was going to entail a whole new level of hell that we were not prepared for, particularly as a result of not getting adequate rest. Our little dog, Mickey, was considerably elderly and nervous. And so, as a result, the day that we were moving, we had to keep him in his crate inside of our home while the movers were going about shuffling stuff around. It was just too much trouble to keep Mickey contained, and it would have been terrible if he would have gotten afraid and run away. So the whole day he was having to stay in his crate, and we didn't end up leaving the hotel close to midnight. So here we are, like up all day, getting out of the car, getting our dogs on their leashes, and going into the hotel room. And I kid you not, no sooner did we enter the hotel room that Mickey had a most unfortunate accident. Um, Here we were just wanting to crash, and we had to tend to Mickey's mess. So I had to go out to our car and try to find towels that I had put away that were ideally just to last for the period of time that we had arrived in Arkansas until the movers arrived. So we had like this limited supply of towels. But of course, I had to utilize a lot of them that evening to clean up. And so we had kind of a restless night and ended up, first thing in the morning before we hit the road, I had to go make another trip to like Petco and get some doggy enzyme spray and some doggy diapers and get back to the hotel and, get things back to normal. And so that was the beginning of all kinds of fun. So anyway, we set out on the road, and just I wanted to offer that, when you're making a cross-country move, you try to anticipate everything, like you try to think of everything, and it's just not possible. I mean, you try, but it's just not possible, and I am living proof of that. So one thing I would just like to offer up is, one of the things that you actually can control is to ensure that the crate that you are going to be housing your animal in is large enough to where they're comfortable so that they can turn themselves around, so that they can drive comfortably. And of course, you want to anticipate the weather conditions. It was chilly, and so, we were able to have doggy jackets and towels and such to keep, blankets to keep our dogs warm. Another thing, it doesn't hurt to pack up extra towels. And if you're staying in hotels like we are, I mean, it doesn't hurt to maybe have a little enzyme spray because one thing, we've traveled with pets forever, but one thing you don't realize is when a dog or a cat, well, I guess a cat, walks into a pet-friendly hotel, they're going to smell a variety of all kinds of other dogs, and they're going to abide by their instincts and endeavor to mark the territory. And you got to keep your eyeballs on the dog or the cat at the time because you just don't know what they're going to do. And of course, that's what Mickey did. So, another thing to consider are, veterinarians along the way. Thank goodness for Google Maps. You can, uh, in a worst case scenario, just enter veterinarians and sort by distance and see who might be around. So that was really a lifesaver for us. The other thing is it's a really good idea if you can to have some CBD on you. It helps pets with their anxiety. And, it wasn't only beneficial for Mickey, but it was also beneficial for our other dog, Rufus, because, Rufus became upset when he saw that his brother Mickey was hurting. And so all of these things, just like all these things in retrospect, are really helpful to know. So a little bit about our trip. Mickey, we that first night was just the beginning. Like he started to decline considerably. And by day two, we'd come to realize that he was just going from bad to worse. And so when we had to stop along the way because all of the towels that we brought became soiled. And of course, you don't really want to drive with stinky towels. So we had to throw them away. And then we had to buy new towels. So that sort of thing simply could not be anticipated, but it did allow him to stay comfortable and not have to travel in his own waste. And I know this is very sad, and I don't want to get into too much graphic detail, but I do just want to share what happened along the way of our trip. Another thing that's very important and good to know when you're traveling with pets is to call the hotel. I mean, you can go onto your phone and you can anticipate, okay, so we got 2 hours. Okay, we're going to stay here for the night. You can ascertain that a hotel is very likely pet friendly, but always call because you just don't know. One hotel that advertised being pet friendly, well, they weren't. And so we showed up and then we learned that we had to go someplace else. And so if you make your reservation and then you call and ask, you make sure that they're pet friendly. That way you can absolutely ensure that, if you show up there at 10 o'clock at night, dead tired, that you are indeed going to be able to get your pet in there. The other thing is just because a hotel is pet friendly doesn't mean that they're not going to place you smack in the middle of the hallway so that when you take your pet out at 3 in the morning to go do their business, that you're not going to maybe end up waking up all the other pet owners because the other dogs in the pet friendly hallway hear your pet coming down the hall and then they start barking and then there's this symphony of pets. So my advice is to ask the hotel to place you at the end of the hallway right next to the exit so that you can surreptitiously enter and exit without disrupting the other hotel guests. Or, conversely, if they place you right next to the lobby, at least you can scoot out of your room without disrupting everybody. So that is another important thing to do. The other thing when scoping out hotels, a hotel can be pet friendly, but you arrive and then, wow, you're downtown in this urban area and there's no safe place to walk your dog. So look at Google Maps again and ensure that there is sufficient grass, greenery. That'll tell you that there's probably a pretty good idea that you have the ability to comfortably walk your dog. Because, we're out there in the car and, we have AC and we're moving around getting out, but they're like confined to their crate. The least you can do is, give them a nice little area to walk. So that is the other thing. And I'd mentioned always making sure that the hotel is indeed pet friendly and check with a pet deposit. Like some hotels are like, oh yeah, we're pet friendly, but we're going to charge you a $50 to $100 non-refundable pet deposit. Like that doesn't sound very friendly to me. So these are just things that we picked up along the way. I'd mentioned the CBD oil. So we entered Colorado, and our plan, because we had seen that Mickey was declining so rapidly, our daughters live there, and so we were going to have them pick our pets up the next morning and take them to their veterinarian so that Mickey could be treated, and maybe we could just pick our dog up at a later point. So that was our plan. We had the best of intentions, only to discover that the next morning he had gone just from bad to worse. And so we started to call around and found that most of the veterinarian clinics in Limon, Colorado, which is where we were staying, were closed. But there was one. There was this wonderful veterinarian who was open, and we made the reservation, or I don't know, the appointment. Reservation's not a reservation. We made the appointment, and we showed up with Mickey. And we were just like waiting outside there, and it was sunny, but it was cold, and just like this realization came upon us that this was probably it. And the veterinarian, God bless them, they're like, well, would you like to come in and be with your dog, and during their last moments? And it was like, our first inclination was to be like, no, you guys handle it. You're the professionals. But then we realized, we wanted to be with him, and we wanted to hold him, and we wanted to talk to him, and make him feel good right before he experienced his last moments. And so we did that. And in retrospect, I'm so glad we did that, because I can't imagine not knowing what it was like. And I know this sounds kind of sad, but ultimately, trust me, if you ever have to put your pet down, it's the best thing that you can possibly do. You want to be with them. You don't want somebody else to to be with him in those last moments. So anyway, that was how he went out. And it was a weird time, because it's like I felt sad, but at the same time, I felt like it was an act of mercy, because he was so uncomfortable, and we knew that it was the best thing to do. And so he spent his last moments with us and hearing our voices. And I felt really good that, despite just all of the horror of that trip, that we didn't have to take him with us to this this new home that he'd never been before, where there was no furniture, where it would be cold. He was going to have this unsettled, sense of anxiety. All of these things, of course, these are the things that I tell myself to help me cope, to help me feel better. But ultimately, I do know that that we made the best decision for him. So, in a weird sort of way, my closing comments here, it feels like sharing this very sad, terrible tale. It is in effect, I feel like it's helping to honor Mickey's memory, because he did live a good life. And sometimes unexpected things happen, and we just do the best that we can. And we make hard decisions, and it's okay. I feel like we did the best thing that we could for Mickey. And so with that, I guess I want to say, rest in peace, Mickey. I have his little necklace that I'm wearing to remember him by. And I know what I've shared today is probably a very unlikely scenario, but at the same time, I feel like some of the practical tips that I shared might help alleviate someone else's travels. And if at least it helped one person and can potentially, by extension, help their pet, this podcast has accomplished its purpose. This is Jill Varvel, realtor and podcaster from the Dixiecast, Sound of the South. Thank you for joining me today, and we'll see you next week for another heaping helping of Southern comfort for your ears. Thank you for joining.